Hi, I'm Reverend Wendy Craig-Purcell here at the Unity Center in San Diego. Thank you so much for watching today. If you'd like to support the work that we do here, please consider making a contribution. Go to our website. It's easy to do. Thank you in advance for that contribution.
When you hear the word sinful nature, you can hear it in the context of our lower selves. Our lower selves. The word sin comes from a Greek archery term, which simply means to miss the mark. It's referring to the reality that within all of us, we have what we might call the higher self, and we have the lower self. And sometimes we reach toward the higher self, the better version of ourselves, and sometimes we don't vibrate at that level. The fruit of the Spirit is all about the signs of spiritual awakening. And when we awaken spiritually, every single area of our life is improved. Every single area of our life is improved as we awaken spiritually. Everything changes for the better. So today we're going to look at the quality of goodness. And to me, the quality of goodness at its very heart is about our character. It's about our character. It's about the result of living spiritually, the result of any religion really, when lived out, ought to at the very least cause us to live more consistently from our higher natures, our better natures. His Holiness the Dalai Lama would often teach and write about this idea that it really doesn't matter what religion you are, whatever it is, be a good that. And in being a good that, whatever that is, if we are really practicing it, we can be sure that as a result of that practice, that we are going to be better people. Would you not agree that the world desperately needs better people? Our families need better people. Our workplaces need better people. All of our institutions need better people, but where does that begin? Yeah, it begins within us. And that's not to say that we are inherently flawed. In Unity, we don't believe that we are born in original sin. We believe that we are born how? In original blessing, that we're born right the first time. And that does not mean that we don't continue to grow, that we don't continue to evolve, because in fact we are supposed to do that. So this idea of goodness also speaks to this idea of nobleness, this idea of character, this idea, dare I say, of right and wrong, Have you found yourself wondering any more about where is right and wrong? Yeah, your chuckle or murmuring suggests that you've been sitting with that question a little bit as well. There was a professor at San Diego State University. His name, I don't know if he still teaches there, but his name was Brian Cornworth. And he was the teacher of business ethics. Now, pay attention, business ethics. And it came time to do one of the final exams. And he had heard that some of his students had gotten hold of the test. So he decided to change around the answers. And it became apparent that those who had gotten hold of the test were answering it based on the first version of the test, and they flunked. But the part that was most troubling to the professor was that they blamed him. They said, if you're going to keep using the same test again and again, you should expect that some of the students are going to cheat. Now, would you not agree that there's something really wrong with that? And in all classes, an ethics class, right? An ethics class? Here's a piece from Christina Hoff Summers. She's with Clark University, a philosophy professor. She writes, how can we hope to equip students or our children to face the challenge of moral responsibility in their lives if we avoid telling them what is right and wrong, To my mind, leaving children alone to discover their own values is a little like putting them in a chemistry lab and saying, discover your own compounds. They might blow themselves up, right? Right? Now more than ever, I think you and I are called to being good people and doing good things, doing good works. How many of you remember that piece, All I Ever Needed to Know I Learned in Kindergarten? Great little piece, and it was written by a Unitarian minister by the name of Robert Fulgham. And here's a statement from him about this idea of right and wrong. He writes, the line between good and evil, hope and despair, right and wrong, does not divide the world between us and them. It runs down the middle of every one of us. Runs down the middle of every one of us. I was thinking of this as I was going over my message last night. I was thinking how important it is that we live out of some core teachings, really, that find themselves in both the Old Testament and the New Testament, that have to do with a certain standard of living, that have to do with this idea of character, that have to do with this idea of goodness. In the Old Testament, we have a set of instructions on how to do in the world. Do you know what that set of instructions is? Yeah, the Ten Commandments. Jesus came along and he took everything that was there and took it deeper and brought it into the realm not only of doingness, but into the realm of consciousness and the realm of beingness when he gave us the Beatitudes. And the Beatitudes are states of awareness, states of being that, when practiced, exemplify being good, expressing good. So we have both the behavior and we have the consciousness. A couple of weeks ago, maybe only 2 weeks ago actually, I received an email from our Association for Global New Thought executive director. It's an organization I've served on their board for almost 20 years now. And it was reminding those of us in AG&T that Sister Joan Chittister, who is a prolific author and was one of the invited guests at one of our big AG&T conferences in Italy, was going to be being interviewed by Oprah on Super Soul Sunday. Did some of you see it? If you didn't, it's worth going back and taking a look at. She was talking to Oprah about her book, The Time Is Now, A Call to Uncommon Courage. And so I watched the episode, and I was struck by many of the things that she was speaking about, all of which to me have to do with our individual character and our character as a human family. Our need now more than ever to stand in what is right, to stand in what is true, to stand in what is good, and to live from that for ourselves and for each other. I was struck by a statement she made: we must refuse to accept the moral deterioration of the present. We must refuse to accept the moral deterioration of the present. I was encouraged and inspired and proud by her insistence that we are called to a personal spirituality and a prophetic spirituality. Have you heard those terms before? Let me tell you what they mean, because I think that they're really, really important, and it's very much what is at the heart of our Unity Center community. Those of you who have visited a variety of Unity churches often come back and say to me, this church is so progressive. This church is so much on the leading edge of what is happening in Unity. I thought everybody was like this. No, not quite. We're trying to model it. Because, to use words that Joan was using, we are about both a personal spirituality and a prophetic spirituality. A personal spirituality is all that we do to grow ourselves. It's our deep inner work. It's our prayer work, our forgiveness work, our meditation work, our gratitude practice, our practice of non-resistance, our practice of being pulled by a vision. This is our personal spirituality. But it is not enough, as we say again and again, to just be about our individual personal spirituality. We must also embody what some call, Joan and others, call a prophetic spirituality. And that is a spirituality that is not afraid to stand for what is right and holy and good and speak about it wherever it needs to be spoken about. Wherever there is injustice, wherever there is marginalization of whole groups of people, to not just be quiet and say nothing, because we don't want to make any waves and we want to play nice, but to stand in the truth. Right is right. And we're never going to correct the wrongs and the ills in our world if we remain silent. And it takes courage to speak, doesn't it? But besides courage to speak, it takes some education. We really need to make sure we know what it is that we're talking about, right? That we know what it is that we're talking about, and then we have the courage to speak and the skill to speak with kindness. The skill to speak with kindness. I know it was Martin Luther King who said an important thing that I hope I don't butcher when I try to say it. The idea that you can never have any persuasion over somebody if they feel your underlying contempt for them. Which means the way we talk about things that matter, the way we try to embody goodness, not only individually but collectively, and speak about goodness, that we need to do it from a place of knowledge, from a place of courage, and from a place of kindness and compassion. Not kindness and compassion that keeps us silent, but kindness and compassion that speaks in a way that we might have a chance to be heard. Have you ever had somebody try to tell you about something that in your heart you knew was right, but their whole way of talking to you turned you off so much you shut down and you wouldn't listen? Yeah, a lot of us are nodding our heads, right? What this goodness looks like, here are, to me, at least 4 ways that this goodness shows up. It's becoming the very best of ourselves. That's our personal spirituality. Becoming the very best of ourselves. That means we clear up our own stuff. That means if we have forgiveness work to do, we do that forgiveness work. That means that we are honest. It doesn't matter if everybody else is cheating on the test. Well, it does matter if everybody else is cheating on the test. But we can't use that as a reason to say, well, everybody's doing it, so I'm going to do it too. Or everybody's talking in such a mean, sort of divisive way in the world, and is so angry, I'm going to be like that too because everybody else is going to be that way. All we do is we bring the bar down lower and lower and lower and lower and lower when we do that. We need to stand for something that is higher. We need to call ourselves to our better natures. So it's becoming the very best of ourselves, our personal spirituality. I don't have to tell you where you need to do your work. You already know, don't you? You already know. And you know what? You don't have to tell me where to do my work either. Believe me, I already know. Some of you think it's your job to tell me. But trust me, my list is probably longer than yours. And probably more accurate, right? It's what they teach in AA, right? We're to do our own work, our own work. So becoming the very best of ourselves is our personal spirituality. That cultivates goodness. The second is to take on the moral and spiritual responsibility, to take on the moral and spiritual responsibility to make the world a better place for everyone. The moral and spiritual responsibility to make the world a better place for everyone. What if it really did come down to you? Isn't it good that it doesn't? I mean, it's a shared responsibility. But what if we acted as if, wait a minute, I really matter here. Wait a minute, there are people that I interact with that if I had the courage to stand up and speak, to speak truth to power, what kind of influence might I have? We are all, and I mean this without any exceptions, we are all far more powerful and far more influential than we realize. Every single one of us is a leader in some way. Every single one of us is a teacher. And every single one of us has people who are watching us and taking note. That's true not only of people who are in a position that their position sets them apart in that way. It's true of every single one of us. You have coworkers or friends or family members or nieces or nephews or grandkids or children that are watching how you show up, what you speak to and what you turn your back to. And the same is true for me. So to take on the moral and spiritual responsibility to make the world a better place for everyone. When you think of the other, who falls into that list for you? Can you bring the other a little closer in? Either we really do believe that we are one human family, or we don't. I know we are one human family. I just realize we don't always act that way. And I accept the call, and I hope you will too, to act as if you are part of one human family. The third is to do whatever we can, wherever we can, to lead us back to spiritual sanity. The words spiritual sanity were words I heard from Joan Chittister. I love that. Spiritual sanity. Say that with me. Spiritual sanity. Love and peace and fairness are not political matters. That should get an applause. Those are spiritual matters. And we've gotten a little insane of late. A little insane in our world. A little insane. Spiritual sanity doesn't exclude people. Spiritual sanity doesn't ignore those who are hurting. Spiritual sanity doesn't agree with economic injustice or racial injustice or any. We like to think of Jesus, most of us like to think of Jesus in a certain way. As a teacher and as a way shower and as loving and compassionate, and his teachings are that, but he was also prophetic. He spoke to the cultures and the institutions in his day, both religiously and politically, that were off base. And he was trying to bring, I believe, a consciousness of love and kindness and fairness everywhere. I don't know how any one of us could say that we are a Christian, even a metaphysical Christian, if we do not do what we can do wherever we are to bring spiritual sanity back to our environment. And the last would be to speak the truth to a culture of lies. That's a line from Sister Joan Chittister. To speak the truth to a culture of lies, even if we may not yet be heard. I'm reminded when I reflect on my study in ministerial school of the Bible, how many times the prophets spoke, and they warned the people, we're going down the wrong path. And to be a prophet is to be one that can see when you're going down the wrong path before most everybody else sees that you're going down the wrong path. And to speak to that and to say, come back. They weren't always heard. But that should never be the reason that we don't make the effort to speak. The fact that we may not be heard must never keep us silent. I want to close with a couple of thoughts here, especially on this last one, the idea of speaking the truth to a culture of lies. Many of you in this room know that for well over a year now, I've been doing a lot of work behind the scenes in San Diego with members of our community and beyond around the area of racism in our country that troubles me personally and deeply, both individual racism and systemic racism. They both exist. And some of the work that we've done in our White Allies group, which is about white people coming together to understand what we can do one conversation at a time to help dismantle racism. One of the things that's become very apparent to me is how powerful it is when people who sometimes look at themselves as being either too quiet or too timid or too afraid to use their voice finally feel the courage to use their voice without breaking any confidence here. There's a member of one of our white ally groups who fits the description I just gave. And she has inspired me so much because as quiet as she has been for so much of her life, she has stepped into this work and she has had the courage to educate herself around an issue that she cares about and to actually begin to talk to people in her life that make racial comments and so forth. And to watch this somewhat timid person that has held herself back for so long have the courage to speak and to hear how those that she is speaking to are listening to her is so inspiring. And I share that as a way of saying having a voice doesn't look the same through every person. Some of us have a lot of words. Some of us may be a bit more articulate. Some of us may not have to deal with any feelings of insecurity or very few feelings of insecurity, and so our voices and our presence may seem bigger than others, but that in the end isn't what matters. We are each, and we can be and need to be an instrument of peace wherever we are. And in order to really embody what it is to be truly spiritually good, it means that we are willing not just to engage in a personal spirituality, but that we are willing to step in to a prophetic spirituality. Let me close with these thoughts. The first is from Joan, and the second is from me. That we are to stop, Joan says, we are to stop hiding behind a life of prayer as an excuse to do nothing about anything. And from me, to be truly good, we must be about something beyond ourselves. I hope you'll join me. Namaste.
Many people enjoy Reverend Wendy's talks and meditations and aren't able to attend the Unity Center in person. If you're part of our extended family from around the world and would like to help support the Unity Center, please go to our website or download our free app, which offers even more ways to connect with the Unity Center. Namaste.